This recording is for reading check 7. It starts at the top of page 51 of the scanned book. "Well," said Beatty, "take the night off." He examined his eternal matchbox, the lid of which said, "Guaranteed 1,000,000 lights in this igniter," and began to strike the chemical match abstractedly. Blow out, strike, blow out, strike, speak a few words, blow out. He looked at the flame. He blew it. He looked at the smoke. "When will you be well?" "Tomorrow. The next, maybe. First of the week." Beatty puffed his pipe. "Every fireman, sooner or later, hits this. They only need understanding to know how the wheels run. Need to know the history of our profession. They don't feed it to rookies like they used to. Damn shame." Puff. "Only fire chiefs remember it now." Puff. "I'll let you in on it." Mildred fidgeted. Beatty took a full minute to settle himself in and think back for what he wanted to say. "When did it all start, you ask? This job of ours? How did it come about? Where? When? Well, I'd say it really got started around the thing called the Civil War. Even though our rule book claims it was founded earlier, the fact is we didn't get along well until photography came into its own. Then, motion pictures in the early 20th century, radio, television. Things began to have mass." Montag sat in bed, not moving. "And because they had mass, they became simpler," said Beatty. "Once books appealed to a few people here, there, everywhere. They could afford to be different. The world was roomy. But then the world got full of eyes and elbows and mouths. Double, triple, quadruple population, films and radios, magazines, books leveled down to a sort of paste pudding norm. You follow me? Paste pudding. I'm going to pause here. I want you to think about paste pudding, like plain, easy to swallow. This is a metaphor here for the information. I want you to think about what he's trying to say about the information in this mass media. I think so. Beatty peered at the smoke pattern he had put out on the air. Picture it. 19th century man with his horses, dogs, carts, slow motion. Then in the 20th century, speed up your camera. Books cut shorter. Condensations, digests, tabloids. Everything boils down to the gag, the snap ending. Snap ending? Mildred nodded. Classics cut to fit 15-minute radio shows and then cut again to fill a 2-minute book column, winding up at last as a 10 or 12-line dictionary resume. I exaggerate, of course, the dictionaries were for reference, but many of those whose sole knowledge of Hamlet, you know the title, certainly, Montag. It's probably only a faint rumor of a title to you, Mrs. Montag. Whose sole knowledge, as I say, of Hamlet was a 1-page digest in a book that claimed, "Now at last you can read all the classics. Keep up with your neighbors." Do you see? Out of the nursery, into the college, and back to the nursery. There's your intellectual pattern for the past 5 centuries or more. Mildred arose and began to move around the room, picking things up and putting them down. Beatty ignored her and continued. Speed up the film, Montag. Quick. Click, pick, look, eye, now, flick. Here, there, swift. Pace, up, down, in, out, why, how, who, what, when, where, eh? Bang, smack, wallop, bing, bong, boom. Digest, 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 digest. Politics? One column, 2 sentences, a headline. Then in midair, all vanishes. Whirl man's mind around about so fast under the pumping hands of publishers, exploiters, broadcasters, that the centrifuge flings off all unnecessary, time-wasting thought. Mildred smoothed the bedclothes. Montag felt his heart jump and jump again as she patted his pillow. Right now she was pulling at his shoulder to try and get him to move, so she could take the pillow out and fix it nicely and put it back. And perhaps cry out and stare or simply reach down her hand and say, "What's this?" and hold up the hidden book with touching innocence. School is shortened, discipline relaxed, philosophies, histories, languages dropped. English and spelling gradually neglected, finally almost completely ignored. Life is immediate. The job counts. Pleasure lies all about after work. Why learn anything? Save pressing buttons, pulling switches, fitting nuts and bolts. Let me fix your pillow, said Mildred. No, whispered Montag. The zipper displaces the button, and a man lacks just that much time to think while dressing at dawn, a philosophical hour, and thus a melancholy hour. Mildred said, Here! Get away, said Montag. Life becomes one big pratfall, Montag, everything bang, boff, and wow! Wow, said Mildred, yanking at the pillow. For God's sake, let me be! Cried Montag passionately. Beatty opened his eyes wide. Mildred's hand had frozen behind the pillow. Her fingers were tracing the book's outline, and as the shape became familiar, her face looked surprised and then stunned, her mouth open to ask a question. Empty the theater save for clowns, and furnish the rooms with glass walls and pretty colors running up and down the walls like confetti or blood or sherry or sauterine. I don't know that word, I'm sorry. You like baseball, don't you, Montag? Baseball's a fine game. Now Beatty was almost invisible, a voice somewhere behind a screen of smoke. What's this? Asked Mildred, almost with delight. Montag heaved back against her arms. What's in there? Sit down! Montag shouted. She jumped away, her hands empty. We're talking! Beatty went on as if nothing had happened. You like bowling, don't you, Montag? Bowling, yes. And golf? Golf is a fine game. Basketball, a fine game. Billiards, pool, football? Fine games, all of them. More sports for everyone. Group, spirit, fun. And you don't have to think, eh? Organize and super organized, super sports. More cartoons in books, more pictures. The mind drinks less and less. Impatience, highways full of crowds going somewhere, nowhere. The gasoline refuge. Towns turn into motels, people in nomadic surges from place to place. Follow the moontides living tonight in the room where you slept this noon and I the night before. Mildred went out of the room and slammed the door. The parlor aunts began to laugh at the parlor uncles. Now let's take up the minorities in our civilization, shall we? Bigger the population, the more the minorities. Don't step on the toes of the dog lovers, the cat lovers, doctors, lawyers, merchants, chiefs, Mormons, Baptists, Unitarians, second generation Chinese, Swedes, Italians, Germans, Texans, Brooklynites, Irishmen, people from Oregon or Mexico. The people in this book, this play, this TV serial are not meant to represent any actual painters, cartographers, mechanics, anywhere. The bigger your market, Montag, the less you handle controversy. Remember that. All the minorities with their navels to be kept clean, authors full of evil thoughts, lock up your typewriters. They did. Magazines became a nice blend of vanilla tapioca. Pause again here with the description, comparing the words, the ideas with bland food. Vanilla tapioca, smooth, soft, easy to digest, not offensive. Books, so the damned snobbish critics said, were dishwater. No wonder books stopped selling, the critics said, but the public, knowing what it wanted, spinning happily, let the comic books survive, and the three-dimensional sex magazines, of course. There you have it, Montag. It didn't come from the government down. There was no dictum, no declaration, no censorship to start with. No. Technology, mass exploitation, and minority pressure carried the trick. Thank God. Today, thanks to them, you can stay happy all the time. You are allowed to read comics, the good old confessions, or trade journals.